They were awesome last night, and everybody played. And when everybody plays, that tells you just how good they were offensively and how bad Houston was. So, what can I tell you? Tom Thibodeau's got his guys ready to rock and roll. They had a nice couple days of rest. They go out to Houston, and they just slam the Rockets. And then, of course, you have Edwin Diaz, who almost blows it last night and then gets taken out of the game because he's got a bad stiff back, and then Familia's got to come in. He's got to get Harper out. I mean, that was insane last night.
Yeah, that whole game and that whole series. I mean, it all started on Friday night with Alvarado and Dom Smith, and then it continued. And then Alvarado, because he appeals his suspension, gets in the game last night.
That was all over the place.
Yeah, I know.
That was dangerous.
I know he is.
I mean, would you want to stand in there against that guy?
I would not. No. I wouldn't want to stand in against any of these guys.
No, you're right. But that guy in particular, yeah. I mean, that was bad. That was awful. But I don't know what to tell you. The Mets, it's just like you can feel like it's coming on. It's coming on just like the Yankees. But now, the Yankees and the Mets, the Yankees in particular played bad teams. They split with Baltimore. That's not great. They sweep Detroit. That's exactly what they're supposed to do. The Mets, they take 2 out of 3 from Washington. They get swept by the Red Sox in a 2-game series, and then they take 2 out of 3 from Philadelphia. I mean, and the bats are starting to wake up. And I know that Francisco Lindor is not doing what everybody wants him to do, and everybody wants to blame him, and that's fine. He's going to be okay. Everybody, it's baseball, and this is what happens in baseball. Guys pressing, guys, trying to get off to a good start. The guy wants to do well for the Mets. He's got a huge contract. He came here with a big reputation. And it just hasn't happened for him offensively yet. And, I don't care what A-Rod says last night, or Keith Hernandez was, I think really pointed it out over the weekend. But, to me, it's just a matter of time, and we just all have to give him a chance to breathe. And I don't feel sorry for a guy making $340 million. I don't. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying, as a Met fan, is I want him to do well.
Well, we all do. I mean, I think that's the frustration when you hear the boos or people are tweeting this guy stinks. It's all because you want to see him do well. But, those that are really over the top frustrated, what do you want the Mets to do about it? Sit him down? Put him on the bench?
There's nothing they can do right now.
Trade him? I don't know what you want. He's going to be in the lineup. He's going to be here for 11 years. And he's going to play well. He will at some point. He's not going to turn into some unbelievable free agent bust that we've seen in the past. I truly believe that.
So do I. 100% I believe it. And it's unfortunate. I mean, I like the way he handled it. And even last night, during the game, you're following some of the tweets that are going on, and people are just ripping them left and right. And I'm like, man, God, Jesus, can we all just take a step back? This is not September, where we'll find out where they are in the pennant race and all that other stuff, and the division race and the playoff race. We're in May, for God's sake, and we're already just ready to jump ship on him.
Well, everybody's scared that he's going to turn into that next guy that you gave a ton of money to that didn't pan out. I mean, Cespedes did a ton for the Mets when he was here, but after he got that contract, it turned into a mess. The Jason Bay contract, obviously the two guys he's always compared to because the similar position, in the infield, and one guy came from Cleveland and Baerga, Baerga and Alomar, is he the next guy? I mean, that's what it is.
I just see a frustrated guy that's just missing a couple times, just missing barely. And I think he's trying to play through it. I think he's trying to remain with his upbeat personality and all of that other stuff. But even the great players, can go through some issues where they lose their confidence. They just haven't had anything. And he just needs a couple games where all of a sudden it starts to click for him. Now, you never know when that's going to happen. And I know it's frustrating. And believe me, I'm frustrated too. There's nothing worse than having him come up with the bases loaded and either strike out or pop up. Or hit into a double play. It just drives you crazy.
Yeah.
But it's 21 or 22 games, and everybody is honestly. We just have to relax. Let's wait. Let's wait till we get to 75 games.
Yeah,
and see what happens.
And I understand the frustration and Mets fans. I mean, after last year. And it didn't go well, and it was a weird season to begin with, and high expectations, and new owner, and all the things that are going on. And you're sitting there as a 500 team, and your high-priced superstar has been flat-out terrible. I understand the frustration, but some of it is just completely over the top.
For the most part,
stop screaming, will you?
For the most part, your pitching's been really good. Your bullpen has been good until Edwin Diaz last night.
That look came back, that Edwin Diaz look with the Reese Hoskins overturned home run. That, like, I don't know how that happened. Look, remember that from 2019? I thought that was a good pitch. I don't know what happened.
Anyway, you have Carrasco coming back. You have Syndergaard coming back. Just everybody relax. We're not even into the dog days of summer yet. And that's when you find out whether or not your team's going to be any good. And this team's going to be a good team. Michael Conforto started to hit again. Pete Alonso slammed a double, with the bases loaded yesterday. And that's the kind of stuff that you're hoping for. That's what you want to see. It's kind of the same thing that was going on with the Yankees for a while.
Right.
And hey, to be able to win a game 2-0 with Corey Kluber on the mound.
He's been great. I mean, after a really sluggish start, his last couple starts have been phenomenal, which is, we were – not us, but a lot of people were calling up saying, Brian Cashman, bargain bin, everything else. Corey Kluber after that terrible start. Well, he's turned it around his last 2 starts, so hopefully that's a continuing trend. And Giancarlo Stanton's been the hottest hitter for the Yankees now all of a sudden. So those are good things.
You know what, it's baseball. It's 162 games. A lot of crap happens during the season, and we just gotta. I'm not ready to jump ship, especially where like everybody else in the division, especially with the Mets, it's a middling division. Nobody can seem to get any traction whatsoever.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're losing ground or anything. As a matter of fact, they've taken 2 out of 3 from 2 teams that are in their division in 2 out of their last 3 series. So that's good. That's all that stuff is good, man. It's going to take a while for this thing to get going. But once those guys start hitting again, man, like they have been, and like last night, now all of a sudden that's the lineup. Once Lindor gets started going, now all of a sudden you have your full lineup going, and sometimes I just can't. I don't understand. I'm passionate too, and I'm a passionate Ranger fan, and my season's basically over. And I hated the way that this whole thing ended. But I'm not ready to give up on players left and right all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, I think that our attention spans and our patience have gone out the window over the last couple of years in all sorts of facets of life, and that applies itself to sports as well. I have now gotten to the point now where I'm rooting harder for Francisco Lindor than I ever have, because everybody's just turned on him and thought that he was a total dog, and because you've seen him play 1 month of baseball in the Mets uniform.
And here's a word to the wise. A lot of people were saying that R.J. Barrett was a bust after last year's draft.
Yeah.
And then of course out comes a couple articles about how they were, they stuck with him and they needed to stick with him and all this other crap. If you listen to half the fan base, you would have got rid of him.
Well, it's a similar situation though with all the free agent busts with the Mets and how they give money to guys and then it doesn't pan out. It sort of was the same thing with the Knicks fan. They just thought it was going to be another guy that they took high in the first round who was going to stink. Because when you got Kevin Knox and Frank Ntilikina in your mind, and then R.J. Barrett gets off to a sluggish start, I mean, that's right there. You're thinking, here we go again. It's not so much on R.J. Barrett, but the organization screwing it up. But he has been phenomenal. Other than Julius Randle, R.J. Barrett has been the story for them this year, and Julius Randle gets over 30 points last night and doesn't even have to play the fourth quarter, as they did. One of my favorite things about this Knicks season is when they play a bad team, they beat the hell out of them. They smack these terrible teams around. They don't lose these bad games. Tom Thibodeau last night is calling it, they're up 23, he's calling a pissed-off timeout because he didn't like the way that they looked defensively, which is great. I love stuff like that. And now it gets a little bit tougher with Memphis, and then after that, even harder there. But, we talked about, winning that last game at home before the road trip, had to do that, getting off to a big start against Houston. They did that. And if you look at the standings, I mean, there's a little bit of separation there now as the Celtics lose. So you're up 3 games in the loss on them and 2 ahead of the Hawks and the Heat. So, I mean, they are in a great spot, man. And now I am focused. I am laser focused on that 4 seed, man. I mean, I want that 4 seed. Before it was just stay out of the play-in and I'll be happy. Not anymore. I want the 4 seed, and I think that the Knicks themselves are also locked in on that.
Something tells me it's going to come down to those last 3 home games, man.
Yeah.
It's going to come down, because now, like you're saying, they're stepping up in competition. The other thing, too, for me is they do beat the bad teams. And, that's what the Yankees just did. They just beat a bad team. The Rangers, they can beat bad teams, but once they play against real teams, they don't look like the team that they do against the bad teams. It's like there's no room. And with all the injuries now that they have sustained, this season can't get over fast enough now. But I will say this, that if next year looks a lot like this, there'll be guys looking for new jobs. there'll be definitely guys looking for new jobs because
you talk about the coach.
Well, it's coach, it's everybody because these are all handpicked players that are supposed to be great players, high-end players. And it's great to have high-end players, but you better have some grit on your team, especially in that sport. And if you don't have it, guess what? You're going to be sitting out the playoffs every single year. And right now, in the middle of this rebuild, I don't know how long it's going to take, but they're going to need to do something because something happens to their best players when they play good teams, and that's not a good sign. When you're good players and everybody likes them, are playing against the Devils, the Flyers, and the Sabres, and they're passing the puck all over the place, and it really looks like a thing of beauty. It's fantastic. But when you start playing against defensive teams that are going to put their sticks in a way, that are going to be blocking shots, that are going to be hitting you, and now all of a sudden your guys disappear, that is not a good sign. That is not a good sign at all, and that's why. You have guys that are putting up career numbers, and you say, okay, wow, that guy's got a lot of numbers. This guy's got a lot of numbers. This guy's putting up numbers. But when are the numbers coming? Are they coming when a team is up 6-3 and you're scoring a goal or hitting a home run? Does that really matter? Or are you doing it when a guy is all over you and you're fighting for space in front of the net? And that's not what's happening. And I know they have a lot of injuries, but still, at the end of the day, you still have top quality players out there that basically have disappeared for 3 of the last 4 games.
Yeah, so next year all the excuses are out the window because
for me they are. I mean, I like the building. I like what I see for the most part. But then when you see them against really good players and really good teams and really good defensive structure, you don't see the looseness. Now all of a sudden you got a problem. And the other night, now they've gotten basically wiped out by the Islanders the last 2 games. And the other night was the last game they were going to play at the Coliseum. Supposedly, hopefully UBS would be ready for the Islanders. But it just goes to show you when your top players are on the ice. Now, I know half the roster were kids, but when your guys that are making the big money are on the ice and they're out there with other guys making big money and they are disappearing, that is a troubling sign, my friend.
Yeah.
Very troubling sign.
So a couple other things we didn't touch on. The rest of the NFL draft we'll get to. And then last night, Giannis just goes crazy against the Nets. Him and Kevin Durant are going back and forth. Giannis wins. Enter the poo. I mean, he's had his ups and downs. I mean, I think when he broke it to that upper echelon of NBA superstar, he was then criticized because no success in the playoffs and people are calling him soft, whatever. But when he has a game like that last night, he does look like the best player in basketball at times.
These games don't mean anything.
Well,
the game that's going to mean something is the Eastern Conference Championship if these 2 teams make it.
Sure.
And here's the thing. I'm still waiting to hear anything about James Harden from anywhere. I haven't heard one thing about him.
Well, the last we heard is there was the setback, and then with the setback means that we're not going to see him anytime soon. I mean, basically, it's like get this guy healthy for the second round of the postseason. That's really what it comes.
Second round?
That's what I would say, because you'll probably be able to beat whoever that first team is easily, I would think, and then just make sure he's fully healthy for the second round. That's what I would say. But even Giannis said after the game, you said, maybe Nets fans or basketball fans say, oh, Boomer said the game doesn't matter. Giannis himself, who won the game and was great last night and had his season high in scoring, said the game doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
What's going to matter is when they face each other in the postseason.
If they face each other. That's
if they do.
I think Giannis is thinking that it's going to be an Eastern Conference Championship. I don't know how it all lines up yet. Well, we still have, about 8 or 9 games to go before we find that out. But that game last night was just really two stars going after each other back and forth. But if Harden doesn't come back,
I mean, I think that he probably will.
You think so?
I think he'll come back and play.
You
yeah.
hope so, all right.
I mean, I think that they are probably thinking get that hamstring totally healthy by the second round of the postseason. If it's earlier than that, then great. But that's probably what they're gearing for. But, I mean, even if he doesn't, I mean, they've got enough there to be able to compete for a championship. We know that.
I just want to say one thing about the Jets draft, and I was so happy that Joe Douglas went after this guy. Do you know who the guy is?
I don't know. Let me hear
I was talking about him.
Yeah, the wide receiver at Ole Miss.
That's exactly right, man.
In the
I'm so
second
happy
round.
that they got him.
Right.
And he's going to be he'll be a punt returner most likely, kick returner. He'll be a slot receiver. And it looks like Joe Douglas is going to do everything he possibly can to make sure that Zach Wilson is going to get off to a good start by adding the players that he added. The first 4 were all offensive players. The next 6 were all defensive players. I mean, you never know how these kids are going to turn out. But if you told me that he was going to get Wilson, Tucker, Moore, and Carter, I would say, wow, that's a pretty good haul considering who they were in college. And you would hope that who they were in college, that they're going to be better pro players. And I think Elijah Moore will be one of those players where he was really good in college, but has the ability, I believe, put in the right offense, which this offense will be, where they'll use his 4.3 speed. The guy's a 4.3 speed guy. That, something that the Jets haven't had.
Sure. Smaller guy, 5'7".
I don't care how small they are. It doesn't matter. Tyreek Hill is small, but plays big.
He does, because he's one of the fastest guys at football.
And so is this kid now.
Yeah, it was sort of funny because I'm watching the draft on Saturday, and the Jets select the running back out of North Carolina, Michael Carter, and they start by showing the highlights on the broadcast of the Duke safety, Michael Carter, and then they have to cut out of that and go to the running back highlights. And then later in the draft, they take the other Michael Carter. So they got 2 Michael Carters on the team.
Well, I'll tell you, as a draft haul, I thought the Giants did well, too, making all the trades and getting some of the picks back that they didn't have and doing what they did. And I don't know. It just felt like the draft was run well by both local teams. Now, whether or not these kids turn out to be anything, only time will tell. But I got a good feeling out of both of the drafts by these teams. I'm not gonna sit here and say they got an A+ or an A.
We're not giving no draft idea. Grades. Come on.
But I just kind of feel like it seemed like very organized, very they were understanding and they knew who they wanted. And I don't know, for the first time in a long time, the Jets seem to be on the same page.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the red bell so you're notified when we have new content.